I am so excited to have the great Lou Dobbs on the Sarah Carter Show. I can't believe it. This is the first time I'm actually going to get to ask Lou questions. Usually it's Lou asking me questions on the number one show on Fox Business. So, Lou, thank you so much for being on the Sarah Carter Show.
Great to be with you. Now you have me very frightened.
I won't. I'm not going to scare you at all. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Every time I'm on your show, I'm like sweating bullets. What's Lou going to ask me now? It's going to be a trick question. I know it. But I'm going to talk to you about, your great book, Lou, The Trump Century, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever. I couldn't agree with you more. And the reason I think your book is so important and the reason I wanted you on the show to talk about it is because this is really where Trump changed everything for everyone. It's about the economy. It's about how he viewed our country and how he put America first, right?
Absolutely. And as you say, it's about the economy, the political economy, and a man who arrived at the perfect moment in history to do what had to be done to save this country's destiny and to restore our greatness as a nation after years, and I'm referring to both political parties, years of leadership that was not always in alignment with our national interest and with the needs and the interest of the American people and the American working man and woman. This president chose the perfect time in history to step forward or go down that escalator to announce his candidacy. He has changed everything. People may not even realize that for 20 years preceding uh, President Trump's decision to run for president, we had stagnant wages in the middle class. Now, the middle class
Right.
is the bedrock of this nation. It's where the American dream resides most brightly. It is so critical to all that we are and identify as Americans. It is where we look to, if we aspire to the middle class, it's where we look to arrive, and from which we hope that we will launch the next generation to do even better than we do.
But Lou,
He
really quickly, but Lou, it seems like both sides, both the Democrats and the establishment Republicans, completely forgot that. You're great
oh
friends with President Trump. I know
right.
he cares about the American people. In 2016, when I was in Wisconsin, I would talk to people that were waiting in lines for hours to see the president. I'd say, What are you here? Are you a Republican? No, I'm an independent. Then why are you standing here in line for hours? They said, Because for the first time in my life, where I can vote, I actually feel there is a candidate that is actually listening to me. And I heard that again in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Would you agree with me on that? And would you say that these establishment Republicans and Democrats have completely forgotten what the middle class has done for them and for this country?
Well, absolutely. And that's why the president arrived at the perfect moment, is because both parties had become globalist elites, whether it be the Republicans or the Democrats. Democrats aligned with the left wing movements of nations all over the world, and the Republican Party aligned with commercial, corporate interest all across the world, globalist elites, and the hell with them, the American working man and woman and their families. Uh, the Republicans would talk even about family values while they tore up um, American workers' jobs. They supported the outsourcing of millions of American jobs. The the left wanted to restore the concept of a total government. They wanted, whether you call it socialism, they wanted more government. They didn't want better government. They just wanted more of it. And they aligned themselves with international interests that certainly this country should never, ever have been doing business with. And I'm talking about now under Barack Obama, a deal to turn over $150 billion,
Mhm.
leave $1.8 billion in foreign currency cash on a tarmac, on a pallet. Are you kidding?
To Iran,
President,
to Iran,
it's just,
to our
yes, to
enemy,
Iran.
to our enemy.
Uh,
And that's something that, Lou, I I think you hit the nail on the head here. It makes strange bedfellows, right? We see this
Hmm.
Lincoln Project with the Republicans, we see the
Oh,
Democrats, we see them working now together. They always pretended to be two different parties. And then we're seeing the real face right now of these Lincoln Project Republicans and these
oh,
Democrats, right? America's seeing the truth
absolutely.
for once.
The American people are very hard to fool. They can be fooled, but not for long. And they are looking straight at this uh, this this maelstrom that this nation is in. People kid about this is 2020. What else can happen? Because it surely will. Uh, we are looking at a nation right now that is coming out of a recession caused by a China virus that was unleashed by the communist Chinese and Xi Jinping on an unsuspecting world without warning. It was a conscious act to unleash that virus while the Chinese government shut down domestic travel. They encouraged international travel and the dispersal of that virus. And that
Absolutely. And
is
you had the
the,
scientist on your show from China, the lady that
right,
worked at the lab. She's from Hong Kong. She worked at the
mhm,
Wuhan lab. She talked about this possibly being a man-made virus or
right.
altered virus. And you brought up that point. How can we say that the Chinese did not purposefully unleash this virus on the world when they actually shut down travel within their own country, but left it open so that
Right.
people from Wuhan could travel to Italy and all over the
And
world?
exactly. And they covered up the origin of that virus. They covered up their acts to prevent the world from knowing more about the virus. It was a conscious act on the part of Xi Jinping and his government, and that makes it the moral equivalent of murder. There is no two ways about it. There is no room for another interpretation. It's
I
straightforwardly an act against the entire globe.
And this is the first time we have a president that is willing to hold
Absolutely.
China accountable, and tell the American companies that are so vested in China, you need to be vested in the American people, not in the Chinese government. And we're not going to put up with it anymore. Do you think that's why he has received such a
Oh,
backlash from those folks that are globalists that you and I both know exist here in Washington, D.C., in this swamp, as well as in other parts of America where they really don't care about the American people as much as they care about lining their pockets and utilizing cheap Chinese labor to do so.
for a moment, we could suspend a discussion of all of the people he's helped by the tens of millions in this country, and indeed around the world, actually. But let's think about the people who hate his guts and who they are. They're the Chamber of Commerce, the biggest lobby in Washington, D.C., representing corporate America, the Business Roundtable, representing 130 to 150 U.S. multinationals, because he is in no way interested in pushing their interest. He is interested in the working man and woman, their families in this country, creating jobs, bringing back manufacturing, driving this economy, and creating ever greater opportunity for all Americans. And I mean all Americans. We're talking about the man who created the lowest, is responsible for the lowest unemployment rate for blacks in this country's history, the lowest unemployment rate for Hispanics. This is a man who has set off the global elites of both parties, and talking about both parties and
Hmm.
their establishments. It's I always say it this way: this is a country that has two wings, the right and the left, Republicans and Democrats. But always remember, they're just opposite wings of the same bird, and the rest of us get the bird.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, my mom used to say, Lou, to me all the time. She would say, Sarah, the Democrats and the Republicans pretend to have two different roads, but they lead
Mhm.
to the same bed. She used to say that. I don't know
That's
why
right.
she always said, but it's pretty much what you're saying right now. And now we're actually seeing
I
it.
like your mother a lot.
She was amazing. She came from Cuba, so she understands and she understood what socialism and Marxism
You
could
bet.
do to a nation. And Lou, that's what I want to talk to you about. What is it like when you look? I mean, you're one of the people I respect most because you tell it like it is. You've never been afraid to tell the truth and to stand up for the truth. When you see what's happening right now in our country, you see that push towards socialism, towards Marxism, that anti capitalist rhetoric that's spreading from our streets in Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, across this country. And you see these uprisings of young people that have been bought and sold on this socialist message and have and for some reason, because they've either been taught it in high school and in the universities, that they believe that capitalism is somehow evil and wrong, and that America is somehow the evil in the world. What goes through your mind when you see this, and do you think we can reverse this trend?
Thing that goes through my mind is thank God for Donald Trump. He has on this issue, as we're watching what's unfolding, the shooting, the terrible shooting of those two police
It's
officers in
horrible.
Louisville. Uh, we're watching more of this BLM, Black Lives Matter, Antifa inspired Marxist violence in our cities. This has nothing to do with the facts of the Breonna Taylor case. This has everything to do with the activism and the propaganda and the orchestrated effort by the left to drive more street violence because they believe it's in their interest to do so for creating the outcome of the November 3rd election. That is for Joe Biden. It is horrible to think that this country has descended to this point. But remember that those cities, and I know you do,
Hmm.
uh, those cities are run by Democratic mayors. Those states, in most instances, have Democrat governors, and they are purposely holding back law enforcement and telling BLM, the Marxist organization, by the way, they're Marxists before they're black, without any question whatsoever, and
Absolutely.
Antifa to raise as much hell and destroy as much property and in fact take as many lives as is necessary to push this message of hate that is owned by the Democrat Party.
Well, we not only see them pushing that message of hate, they pushed that message of hate for 4 years onto President Trump.
Right.
That message of hate has been pushed on, and you bring it up very well, Lou. And I want to remind people I'm here with Lou Dobbs. I'm talking about his book, The Trump Century: How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever. It is a must buy. You have to read this book. If you care about this country, if you care about what's happening, if you care about our future,
Yeah.
you've got to get Lou Dobbs' book. And the reason I bring that up, Lou, is because there's a rhetoric, right, that we've seen happening in our media. And, you're an expert here. You're an expert in the field of media. And we've seen lies perpetuated against President Trump in the mainstream media. We've seen those same lies perpetuated against people, the American people who voted for Trump. I mean,
Yeah.
this is when Hillary Clinton called them the deplorables. And we see the New York Times and the Washington Post and the editorials basically trash the American people who backed President Trump and who are backing him now. How dangerous do you think that type of rhetoric is to our nation? And what needs to be done basically to counteract that?
Well, your point is exact, and the cause célèbre of the day for the left wing media, Sarah, is the president saying that he couldn't assure a transition in a certain amount of time after the election, and the reason he can't is because there is so much uncertainty. 80 million mail-in ballots have been sent out. We're finding ballots by the roadside in ditches in trays. We know that Nancy Pelosi wants the post office to be the arbiter in this. She calls the post office election central for 2020 in this election. And think what that means. That means that an organization that is bankrupt, that can't even deliver the mail, is going to be in charge of our election. We're
Right.
going to depend upon them to move ballots back and forth. And by the way, the post office is made up of seven, count them,
Hmm.
seven public employee unions who are not exactly ever Trumpers. They are never Trumpers. And the idea that they could be that they could resist bringing their own weight to the outcome of this election, I think is a real stretch of anyone's imagination
It's
or
actually
gullibility.
right. It's actually
The
quite frightening, Lou. It's actually quite frightening to think that after the November 3rd election that we could not know who the president is of these United States, who the next president will
Sarah,
be because of what they are doing. And this is the reason why the Trump administration is fighting tooth and nail to ensure that this is a fair and equitable election.
think about what the cause celeb is in the media in these recent days. The president saying he can't assure that transition. The president saying he might not go with the outcome of that election. When the left even concedes that they're not going to be able to know the outcome of the election for days, perhaps weeks, perhaps months, if indeed this mail in balloting proceeds without successful court challenge.
Right.
But what, where was the left when the Democrats didn't didn't assure a peaceful and orderly transition? Where was the national left-wing media when the Democrats did everything they could to upend his candidacy? They were striking before he was even elected, trying to end his candidacy, then trying to block his election, then trying to overthrow him as president of the United States. It's been 4 years
With the
of
help of the
of out
bureaucracy.
with outright violence against the Constitution from the left and the radical Dems. And now we're supposed to believe that these crocodile tears from the national left wing media are sincere. Balderdash.
Oh, they're not at all. And absolutely, Lou, I can agree with you wholeheartedly on that. One of the things that I think is really important, we actually discussed this on your show, was the push to get felons to vote in Florida. And how Bloomberg paid, $16 million dollars so that 32,000 felons could vote. And now we're seeing other groups out there trying to pay off felons' fines so that they can vote in the state of Florida. That tells me that these Democrats, they are desperate. They realize that they are up against a behemoth that is
Right.
President Trump, and that they're worried that they're not going to be able to pull off this election with former Vice President Joe Biden, who, by the way, isn't even coming out of his basement to talk to anyone.
Isn't it extraordinary? As you and I are talking about those 80 million mail-in ballots, we're talking about the uncertainty that we're going to face in all likelihood on November 4th about the outcome of that election. This Democratic nominee won't even leave his basement for more than 2 days at most, and seldom is seen more than once or twice each week. While President Trump is moving all over the country, going to state after state, I believe it's 30 states
Right.
since August 1st, and Biden barely gets out of Wilmington, Delaware, barely out of his basement. And don't you think it's interesting that this man who cannot complete a sentence. He cannot complete a paragraph in a speech without ending up in some bizarre, unintelligible place. He doesn't make gaffes. He deconstructs the American language. It's just stunning. And why would the Democrats put him up? How could they know that he is in some way impaired? I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you how he's impaired. I can only tell you he's not functioning properly, and he is impaired.
Well,
Eh,
that is very curious
but
to me. That's something that everybody's been asking. It's like, wait a minute, how is this actually happening? This has probably
there's
been,
only
go
yeah,
ahead.
I think Sarah, I think there's only one explanation. They think they've got this election won. They think they've got it rigged, and they think there is no escape from what they'll do with those 80 million ballots. Just tell me how many votes you need in Pennsylvania, how many you need in Oklahoma, what do you need in Michigan? And you know that somebody will be harvesting votes. It's that straightforward, and there is no question about it.
Wow, that is a really great point, Lou. But that's an absolutely terrifying point because
It is.
one of the most, I believe, one of the staples of our nation is the fact that we vote, we go to the polls, we have a peaceful
Yeah.
transition of power. The rest of the world envies that. It's something that, no matter how contentious things have become, we have that peaceful transition of power. What's terrifying, I think, for me and for so many people that I've spoken with is what's going to happen this election? What's going to happen when all lines have been crossed and those ballots have either been tampered with, or they can't officially count them, or nobody knows where half of them have gone, where there's been ballot harvesting? I mean, this could end up being a very dangerous situation. And by the way, it's already dangerous right now. We're seeing what's happening in the streets across our communities.
Well, in the small county that I live in New Jersey, we have a farm up here. 1,600 ballots were screwed up. The county election supervisor has resigned with what, a little over a month to go, 40 days to go to the election, because of well, inappropriateness around the ballots in the primary election. It's happening in counties, in states all over the country, and the Democrats, in my judgment, have much to answer for and should be answering for it in court. But before the election, I hope that the Republicans can get this stopped in the federal courts, because it is going to be a disaster of enormous proportions if they do not. This is
Right.
an effort to steal the election. It's an effort uh, to change the
Mhm.
history of the country.
Let me ask you this. You're very close friends with President Donald Trump. He is always retweeting your show segments, and he's been a great admirer of your work and your book. And I know you don't talk about like what you two may discuss privately, but w- when you think of the president, when you think of him as a friend, what do you think is going through his mind this election season? And I mean, do you think there's concern there, or do you think he's just going to keep fighting like he's always been fighting, just push right through and get the American people to that finish line?
I guarantee you, and I'm not speaking as a friend, I'm speaking as a citizen and an admirer of this president. This man will be fighting to the last ounce of his strength for the American people and for this nation. That everyone can take to the bank. What is he going to do? This president is one of the most wonderful departures from presidents past that one we could imagine. You know what he's thinking. We all know what he's thinking because
Hmm.
he says it loud and clear. And he is also one of the very few presidents who means what he says. He has said that this is an effort to swindle the American people out of their votes and their decisions and their choice and their will. He has said clearly and unequivocally that the Dems mean to steal the election. You can take it to the bank. Uh, that that is precisely what they are doing. This is a president who has used Twitter, social media, as no other president in history. He is in communication, constant communication with the American people. And guess who hates that, Sarah? The
I
people who hate that are all in the national left-wing media because they want to be able to constrain his language. They don't
right.
want him tweeting. They don't want him speaking in Anglo-Saxon terms, some of which are occasionally a little colorful. Uh,
You
but the
could say
fact
that
is,
again.
they're direct and they're honest, and by God, that's worth so much to every one of us. It is precious that he has the freedom of speech to communicate directly with us, to say what he means. Um, and you know, the left wing media, the fourth estate in this country, I like to say, has become a fifth column
Right.
against the United States government. This president is taking them to task, and I guarantee you, he's going to give them a fight like they have never seen before. And he's fought them long and hard over the course of 4 years. And he has not only prevailed, this president has succeeded historically in everything he's undertaken.
I couldn't say more than you already said right now, Lou. I want to go back and tell everybody again, the Trump century, how our president changed the course of history forever, by Lou Dobbs. And before I let you go, Lou, I know your time is
Mhm.
precious. Uh, we're living in historical times. How historical do you think these times are? And do you think this presidency has truly changed the course of American history forever?
I do. Look no farther than the federal judiciary, where he has about 300 appointments judges. But before Election Day, he will have appointed and confirmed three justices to the Supreme Court. Fully a third of the High Court will be conservative. It will have a solid conservative majority that will endure for decades. Look at what he has done with just his energy and his commitment to the American people. His work ethic, Sarah, as you well know, it is just it's
It's
incomparable.
astonishing. Yeah.
Every president will be judged about how they work on the job for the American people by the standard of what President Donald Trump has done as the leader of this nation and the free world. And and by the way, how good is this president? Let's say, how about two Nobel Peace Prize nominations for two separate achievements of his administration, his presidency, in 1 week.
Right.
I think that's even more impressive than Barack Obama getting a nomination in the first 11 days of his presidency for doing nothing.
That's right. That's right. I was going to say it made Vladimir Putin so jealous that President Trump got nominated twice by people
Yeah.
outside of the United States that he had to have like a little task force in Russia, apparently, nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize just to keep up with the president. So I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck, Vlad.
Good luck, Vlad. That's right. Well, everyone, this is the great Lou Dobbs. Lou, I look forward to being back on your show with you. It's
You bet.
remarkable what you have done. You are a New York Times best-selling author, and you've written 6 books, folks. You got to get out there, though, and buy this latest book, The Trump Century, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever. Thank you so much, Lou, for being on the show today. I hope you come back.
I'll be delighted to come back, and I am thrilled and thankful for you inviting me here today. Enjoyed it, appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you soon.
You too, Lou. Thank you.